Day 8 in Turkey. Today's a Sunday. It's a little slow today because, unlike some Muslim countries, um, everything is closed. Unlike some Muslim countries, everything is closed in Turkey on a Sunday. So I didn't have much to do, but I decided to follow the advice of my contact yesterday. He said I have to go visit a mall because Turkish people love malls. And so I went to the mall, and I was greeted by a metal detector that you have to walk through, and also one that you have to put your bag through. And yeah, it was security. There were like 4 or 5 security guards out there inside the mall, and so I passed through security successfully, and I walked up and down the mall, and it's just like any other mall, except for the security part, but also because um, there were some nets, like nets. So like second floor there's a net, and then third floor there's a net, fourth floor there's a net, so that you can't fall off. If you fall, that somebody could catch you. Now I thought to myself that could be for protection, or it could be a suicide net. So I don't know. I know there was some. I looked it up, and there were some stories in Istanbul about someone committed a suicide in a mall, but it's like one person. So I don't know. I don't know why there's nets. I would like to find out. I'm gonna ask someone and try to figure that one out. The second thing is that I exited the mall, and the mall's right next to my hotel, so it was easy. So I went outside the mall, and then I went over to, there was a park, and I didn't realize it was um, a park dedicated to the security forces. Now that park is called the Trust Park, which is amazing because I've been saying this whole time that to the colleagues I've met here and to the people I've interviewed, that the Turkish state enjoys a high level of trust from the government. So the government trusts, the people trust the government. The people trust the state. I think that's true. And yeah, so I went to this place. It's called, again, the park, Trust Park. Let me brighten that up for you. So that's the first thing you're greeted to, and that is basically 2 men holding sticks and just working. So it says, the writing says Turk, food, and then trust, right? So on one side, you see that on the back side of that, you see Ataturk and his colleagues, his compatriots, apparently, or maybe the workers of the state. And then on the right side of that, you see this. So you see artisans and educators. And on the reverse side, you see where this was. You see people in the security forces, police officers, and so on. And so it's called the Trust Park. It's dedicated to the security forces of the Turkish state, and thus it's the Turkish state itself. Unfortunately, there was a terrorist attack in 2016 at that location. So there was a heavy security presence in the park. There's a heavy security presence, I feel, in significant parts of the place I'm living in, this downtown area. There was a protest. I'm not sure. We had cats. Maybe it was a PETA animal rights group, but there were security forces there, heavily armed. They were heavily armed there were a number of them. I don't know if they were heavily armed, but there was a large number. There were buses. So there was a lot of people there, security people, and there were security people in the mall. So there was a lot of, security. So what I did, I decided to go to another monument to Ataturk, and I walked. There was a train station. I was feeling kind of pooped, so I sat down, had a coffee. The train station is Ankara train station. It's like a main hub. There was nothing going on. There was no artwork. It was just like a really nice bazaar downstairs. Inside, and so they were selling baklava, spices, kibbe, kofta, whatever you have, whatever people can want. And then I tried to find the Ataturk monument, but I was feeling pooped, really tired, and so I decided to, unfortunately, turn back. So I turned back and I went to have lunch. So I went to the same place I went to yesterday because it was a really good experience, and I wanted to try the kafta or the kufta. But before we get to that, here's how they serve tea. So on the bottom, this big one, that's water, and on the top, that's tea, and it's heated on the bottom. So the heat travels up, and it boils and mixes. The water from here goes into here, I believe, and makes the tea. And so it's really, really cool. And then you mix. Like, people don't like their tea too hot. And so I'm gonna look up more of that. I'm not really sure how that works. I didn't get a chance to investigate. But here is the tea. It's called a thin waist. Thin waist. So it goes, it's big, and then it thin waist, and it opens up a little bit. And so that's the tea, rabbit blood style, I think. So here we have tzatziki, but they call it a Turkish name. It's called tajiki, I think. And so I really do believe that it's trying to un-Greek the food, right? It's like Greek coffee in Greece. You have to say Greek. You can't say Turkish coffee. So you say tajiki because you still like the food. It's like when the Pope baptized coffee because he didn't want to. His people were saying you can't drink coffee. His subordinates, you can't drink coffee. It's an infidel. It's a Muslim drink. So he goes, no. There's no reason why the Muslims can have it. Let's baptize it and make it a Christian drink. And I think that's the same sort of process that is undergone in every country. That is supposed to be rock kibbe, or whatever they call it here. It's not. It's just bulgur. It's wheat. Unfortunately, it is now illegal in this country to sell that raw kibbe, any raw meat, which is very sad because I really like raw kibbe. I like anything raw for some reason, except raw chicken. I like sushi. And here's a salad, and then here's some tomato dip, I guess. And the main course is the kafta, the kufta, very much like kubide, but of course with different spices. Then you have bulgur, you have some bread, you have a hot pepper and some onions. And what I did, or what I don't know what people do, but what I did was I mixed the onions with the meat, and I had it with some bread, Lebanese style. And then here's another shot of tea. Like they drink a lot of tea. So here's another shot. I had 3 cups of tea in one sitting. And so here is my dessert, which I don't normally eat sugar. I don't have sugar, but might as well be part of the experience. So that's not vanilla ice cream. It's kind of a creamy ice cream. My mom says it's ashta, but or thinks I thought that's what it was. But ashta comes with like a very strong flavor of incense, apparently. This was very milky. Maybe that's just a Turkish variant. That is a cold baklava next to it. There it is. And this is some kind of wheat pudding with cinnamon. All very enjoyable. Very enjoyable. But again, all of this food is shared, and I think that's a product of the Ottoman experience. One hypothesis that I developed, and I'm sure other people have thought about this, is that the Ottoman Empire was basically trade, and so it brought all the treasures of the Ottoman Empire, and then everybody in the Ottoman Empire created something. And so everything is a product of the Ottoman experience, right? It's a regional thing. Macedonians might recognize that as, okay, that sounds reasonable. Greeks will not recognize it. Greeks will say that it came from a Greek kitchen. So it was a baklava was made in a Greek kitchen, or Imam Bialdi or Babaldi was made in a Greek kitchen. Or feta, for instance, from Greece, right? So that's the thing. And the Turkish people believe that yogurt is Turkish, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And the Greeks will fight them to the death. And like my colleague said yesterday, this my point of contact, the person I interviewed, this is sort of a pathetic kind of argument to have, because each of these countries have very large and more important problems to solve. But that's not important to me. What's important to me is that this is part of the nationalism fight, right? It's joined up with a much larger discourse of a nationalist conflict over, like, say, um, Constantinople, Istanbul, like the Greeks. Some Greeks want to take back Istanbul. There's a great Facebook group. I don't know if I can tell you what the name of it is right now. I have to see. But I mean, if there's some names, so I'm not going to go. So one, we were talking about Imam Bayildi. It's called Turkish stuffed eggplant, a classic Ottoman dish, according to the website. Yeah, they talk about the history a little bit, where it came from, and immediately on the response is, it's a Greek dish, and then somebody responds with a Turkish name, and then somebody responds by saying, how do you know it's a Turkish dish or it's a Greek dish? And then so there's a lot of that going on in that group, which is fascinating, it's I'm enjoying that group because it's really helping me get some more evidence, I guess you can call it, perspective, outside of going to an interview. So here we go. What do we have for dinner? It's a Turkish style pizza, right? So it looks pretty good. I think it certainly has cheese and some vegetables. Better not. I'm already spilling. I'm already got my crumbs everywhere. So let's take I split it in half. That way, I can tell you better. Olive, peppers, pizza. They kind of went heavy on them. There's a lot of bread. They eat a lot of bread here. For breakfast, people, they take a lot of bread with them, and I just take one slice, but they take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 slices, and of course I have a lot of the the pastries. I love the pastries. So I've been enjoying that breakfast very much. It needs a little bit more variety, I think. Like they put out scrambled eggs and sausage once, and they haven't done it again, and it would be great if they can include it, right? I mean, a little variety would be great. So that was the pizza. Nothing too thrilling. This is lahm bajin or lahm bakun, I think. I don't know how they call it. I don't speak Turkish. It's basically, they recognize that this is from the Middle East. It's a meat pie. We eat this a lot. My mom, whenever she goes to the grocery store, she picks up a ton of these. This is the stuff right here. And you can have it with a yogurt drink if you like, the ayran. You see, I like to have light dinners. I don't like heavy dinners because sometimes I get up with indigestion. I'm not used to that. Even when I'm home, I don't like to eat. When I go out for dinner, sometimes I eat too much and I get tummy aches. But anyway. You can't drink the water here, so in India, everyone's warning me about being careful in India. Like, I know I'm gonna be careful in India, but everybody's like, no, you really have to be careful. So I'm getting a little. It's coming. I mean, there's Armenia in between, but it's coming. But it has to be done. It's a very important chapter. I really would like to know how the country works with all its diverse groups, ethnic groups, linguistic groups, religious groups, caste groups, economic groups, ideological groups. I mean, it's crazy how many groups there are that compete, and sometimes they fight, other times they come together. So anyway, that's enough. Thank you very much, and until tomorrow, thank you very much.